Hey guys, Daniel here. This is another video. My next guest, he needs no introduction. It's the legendary Tim Sheridan. If you're a comic book fan, you've probably heard of him. Recently, he's been doing some amazing stuff, especially with Teen Titans Academy. I have a few issues here. He also was recently working on the Shazam miniseries, but he recently did the Long Halloween film adaptation, part one and part two, which was amazing. But he's also working on some other films such as Superman, Man of Tomorrow, The Death and Return of Superman, Transformers, and he recently worked on a Netflix show, Masters of the Universe Revelation. But Tim has very kindly agreed to let me annoy him. So Tim, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Daniel. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for being so supportive and checking out all this stuff that I've put out there in the world lately.
Oh man, absolutely. And like you've been crushing it lately, like so much new stuff. Like it's impossible to not see your name if you're a comic book fan. It's like, oh, Tim Sheridan, new project coming up. So that must be really cool. But yeah, so many different things I want to get into. So I don't even know where to start. So first let's talk about how did you get into comics? So were you a fan growing up at all?
Yeah, I was a DC fan, really. I mean,
Really?
I remember like one of the first comics I ever read was Iron Man, but I didn't catch on and read current Iron Man stuff. I was reading, there was a trade that I had when I was a kid, Son of Origins of Marvel Comics, and I would open it up and I would only read the what was it, Amazing Fantasy, the first Iron Man story. I would reread that story over and over again. Was obsessed with it. But I watched cartoons. So, and Spider-Man was a big thing on in cartoons when I was a kid. So I was really into Spider-Man when I was really young. But then once I got a little bit older, like once I was around like 8 or 9, 10 years old, I picked up my first Batman comics, and that was my gateway into DC. And yeah, and my lifelong love of Batman and Superman and the DC universe in general. I mean, I love Marvel, but there's nothing like sort of working in the space, of the thing that I grew up with and loved so
Absolutely.
much as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. You just gave me a perfect segue there. Batman. Some of you may have heard recently the Batman Long Halloween film, part one and part two. That just came out recently. But before we get into that, where can people pick that up? It's out on digital now.
It's out actually on Blu-ray as well. It's out. You can download it digitally, or you can pick up the Blu-rays in shops. I have to say, I felt like those movies were a kind of a trap, because it's very hard to do to do something in a way that the fans feel you've done justice to something that they really love. I mean, The Long Halloween is beloved, and by me too. And so
Absolutely.
when you adapt something like that, you try to do it with some love for the material and in a way that makes people want to celebrate the original source material. I think some folks, sort of think that when we make a movie based on something, the idea is that we're trying to replace it, that
Yeah.
this is the new version, and that's just not how we think at all. Like, we go in thinking this is supplemental. I always say it's a huge multiverse, and we get to exist in animation over here, and the book happens over here. It might happen a little bit differently in the movie versus the book, but we all get to. Oh my gosh, did you hear that?
Divine intervention. We just
That was
started talking. Stuff like
the
this started happening.
the my lighting rig just completely collapsed while I was talking to you. And I blame one of the cats, to be honest.
Has to
I
be.
think it was,
It's so easy to just blame other people. I do it all the time. Whenever there's a
well, I
problem, I
like that
say,
you called the cats people. That was nice. I appreciate that.
you see, yeah, and then I go back to blaming them. So it's like, am I
Yeah.
really good? I guess I'm in the anti-hero basis, but I just blame my sister for things all the time. And we're twins. I get away with like it doesn't work
Oh,
out.
really? You're a twin?
Yeah,
Really?
shining style. Like we stand at the end of hallways, just holding hands, saying, do you want to play with us? It never really works out, but
That's creepy.
isn't it just? But yeah, so you touched on there Long Halloween, and also if you have an Xbox, you can buy it on the Microsoft store. That's how I watched it there. You can buy part one and part two, which I would highly recommend. But yeah, the Long Halloween, what a film. So let's get into it. How did that even come about? Did DC come to you with that, or did you pitch it to them, or?
So I had worked on, so my first job in animation was on a show called Justice League Action. And it was like a subversively, a show, it was a show that looked like it was for kids, but in fact, it was kind of for everybody. And a lot of the jokes that we told on that show, the situations we put the characters in, were things that we always would talk about as fans. Like, wouldn't it be funny if you put these two together and do this funny thing? And like, I wrote my first episode of Justice League Action was, okay, what if Plastic Man is stuck dog sitting Crypto? Like, and that was the premise of the episode. And so we had a great time, and we had a great time doing that. The supervising producer on that show is a guy named Butch Lukic, who came up on Batman the Animated Series, and he directed almost all of Batman Beyond, I think. He's a great artist and a great storyteller. And one of the producers on the show was Jim Creed. And Jim and Butch, after that show was over, started developing films for DC, for Warner Brothers Animation. And one of the first, in fact, their first movie that they wanted to make together was The Long Halloween. And we had a good time working together on Justice League Action. They called me in, and they gave me the gig. And so that was how that happened. We kind of worked together on something before, and then we when I sat down and met with them, what we found was we all thought of The Long Halloween the same way, and we all were of a mind about how to do it, and how to do it as a movie. Although the first day, the idea was that it was going to be one 72-minute movie.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And for the whole story. And I went home and tried to break out the story, and I was just like, I can't. It's not going to be Long Halloween anymore if it's only movie, 72-minute movie.
The 72-minute long Halloween. That would
the 72-minute, the short Halloween is what it would have been, and it wouldn't have worked at all. I mean, if you really think about it, in order for it to be the Long Halloween is the spine of that story is a calendar. Time is passing over the course of a year, and you have to hit these particular holidays because that's the particular theme for this serial killer in the story. And in order to do that in 72 minutes, every 2 minutes we would have been cutting ahead, jumping ahead in time to another holiday, and somebody else would be getting killed, and then somebody else would be getting, and so it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah. And
also Harvey's transformation. I mean, we're talking spoilers here, but
get into
Harvey's transformation would have had to have happened, at the end of Act 1 or something in the movie. You just haven't had any time to meet Harvey and to learn what he's doing. And what he's doing is important. It's so important to the story because it's about, ultimately, that story is about the transition from organized crime to disorganized crime in Gotham City, and it's the city becoming the city that we know Gotham to be, and we know that Batman is going to be fighting for a long time. So in order to do that, you had to do at least 2 movies. When they said okay to 2 movies, I said, how about 3? And they said no.
Yeah, a trilogy up in that, the extra long Halloween. Bring it in.
The truth, really, the truth is, I just wanted another paycheck, is what happened. I just said, let's see if I can double my money on this.
Are you not swimming in that sweet, sweet comic book money? I say it all the time, comic book people must be so rich, Yeah,
you'd have to be to accept the wages that you make in comic books. You have to be independently wealthy.
Amazing.
It is by far you don't do comics for the payday. Let me just tell you. I don't know if you have aspirations of working in comics, but you don't do it for the payday. You do it for the love of the game.
Getting rich is just something that happens to everyone. You just have to make one creator-owned comic that gets turned into a film, and that must be so easy.
I mean, yeah, we all want to be Robert Kirkman, Yeah. I think everybody does. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm thinking, it's funny. I just started working in comics. I worked in animation. I did Reign of the Supermen, and that was Death and Return of Superman. And then I did Man of Tomorrow. Was actually the 4th DC movie I did, because I did Long Halloween 1 and 2 before Man of Tomorrow. They got jumbled in the release order and in the production order. So that was supposed to be the 3rd movie of the Butch Lukic movies. So it was supposed to be Long Halloween 1, 2, then Man of Tomorrow, then Justice Society, World War II. But Man of Tomorrow came out first. Anyway, so I had done all of this stuff, And then DC Comics called and they were like, hey, you want to come in and do some stuff in comics? And I was just, at the time, I thought, oh, this is it. I'm being called up to the big leagues, you know? And then it turned out the books that they hired me to write went away because they were part of the 5G initiative that was going to happen at DC.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was going to write a Nightwing Oracle book where they were a little bit older. They were kind of my age, and also a Flash book featuring a brand new Flash that I would have been introducing. And but that all went away. My editor for the Flash book, though, ended up a couple months later calling me and telling me, hey, we got this idea for Teen Titans Academy. What do you think about that? What would you do with that? And so I said, hey, here's what I would do. And when he said I would get to use the new Teen Titans, the Marv Wolfman, George Perez new Teen Titans lineup as the faculty of the school, I said, yes, please, I'm in. That's stuff that I grew up on. So hey, there we go. There's the annual, which, when we started talking about doing an annual, I said, at least in the States, a lot of schools call their yearbook an annual. And there's number one. Look at this. You got them all, man.
Of course.
So I said, listen, what we should do is we should do a yearbook. Let's do it. Let's style it like a yearbook and have a little fun with that concept. And people really dug it, which is great. I'm very happy about that. That yearbook gave us a chance to sort of tell some stories about some of the characters we didn't, there's so many characters in Teen Titans Academy that there's just not a lot of time to really spend some time getting to know them. And one of the greatest thrills for me is that so many fans have reached out to me to talk about how much they love the new kids. And I can't believe that. I thought that was the toughest proposition, was getting people to be interested in a new group of kids who were learning, the ropes at hero school. I pitched it as, we have a show, I don't know if you have this show called Degrassi. We had this show, it came out of Canada, called Degrassi Junior High when I was a kid, and it became Degrassi. And I said, this is Degrassi with superpowers, is what I want this book to be. And it's kind of evolved and devolved since then. But I thought there's no way people are going to be into these new characters. Turns out people really like the new kids. So that makes me really happy.
Absolutely. And there's one character in particular that I love, which I'll be getting into, but we will be coming back to Long Halloween. But you gave me a perfect segue. We have to talk about Teen Titans Academy. Issue 5 just came out recently. But the one character that I just love, it's Gorilla Greg. He's just, what an amazing character. I took one look I have a weird affinity for monkey-based characters. Detective Chimp is one of my favorite characters. I bring him up all the time in my interviews for no reason. I just like the concept of a monkey walking around doing stuff. And Gorilla Greg, an amazing character. So what was that even concept there? Did you say, you know what this needs? This needs a gorilla named Greg.
Well, I love Gorilla Grodd. And one of the things that really interests me is turning these characters on their head a little bit. I love when we see heroes do bad things, and I love when we see villains do good things, or we see good sides of villains. And I had a little moment in Future State Shazam, which was the first book I worked on.
Oh yeah,
for DC. It was the very first thing I did, actually. And there's a little moment when they're walking through Bel Rev, and we see, as they're walking by, we see Gorilla Grodd, and he's got like a telepathic dampener, headphones things on, but they're playing music, and he's listening to classic rock. He's listening to Elton John, actually.
Is that canon?
And, what's that?
Is that now canon in the DC universe? Gorilla Grodd likes Elton John?
I don't know. If they had known, I think they didn't realize it was Elton John, because they probably would have asked me to change it. But sorry guys, it's Elton John. And he's eating potato chips while he's listening to this music. And he's just hanging out in his cell. I just think that's like hysterically funny. you love the ape and gorilla and monkey characters going around doing stuff. I just think that's hysterically funny for somebody like Grodd to be sitting there, doing a very normal thing that I would do. And I would totally sit there, listen to Elton John and eat potato chips. That's kind of maybe that's a cry for help. I don't know. Why don't put that in there? But that was kind of the first initial impulse. I thought, if I'm going to get to create a class of characters, I want to see a character who is like Grodd, but is a young gorilla. It's Teen Titans, so like a teenage gorilla would really be around like 7 or 8 years old, I think, like in gorilla years. So Greg is probably around 7 or 8 years old, and he's the no good nephew of Gorilla Grodd because he is good. That's why Grodd, has his problems with him. Yep, there's our guy right
in
there.
all his beauty. What an amazing character. So when are we getting that Gorilla Greg spin-off series? What's that about?
I know, that's what I wanted. You're gonna get some Gorilla Greg focused stuff in issues 6 and 7 of Titans Academy, so that'll be good.
Oh, that's the next issue. Amazing.
Yeah, next week we get issue 6, but then issue 7 is where we really get into it with Greg. We did see him as well. He's one of the few characters we saw survive to Future State.
Yes.
As an active roster member of the Teen Titans, and he's all grown up. He wears like a telepathic helmet, and he lost an arm.
He's unkillable, no matter how hard you try.
He's like the bionic ape in the future. I just think he's great, and I hope people like him. His thing is that he's kind of a tech whiz. He's good with machines. He's good with not necessarily tech as much as machinery, and he's good with like building things and engineering. And he's got a complicated relationship with his uncle, like a lot of people do. And I hope you like it. I hope you like the story that plays out.
It's a guarantee. I just love Gorilla Greg as a character, so let's touch on issue 5 that just came out recently. And so actually another question I want to ask regarding the Teen Titans, it's like you've done quite a lot of team books. Like I've noticed a lot of your works, there's always like some type of team involved. So
I can't stand it. I don't want to write team books, Daniel. They're so hard to do. There's too many characters. And I went into Titans Academy and I basically made a 3-team, because you've got the faculty Titans, you've got like the senior class Titans, and you've got the freshmen. It's like, by the way, issue 6 and 7 were originally going to be a different story of Teen Titans Academy.
Wow.
DC ended up scrapping the story they rejected the story that I wanted to tell. That story would have introduced a whole new team. So thank you, DC, for saving me from myself, because
Mike Cotton, you angel.
Cotton was with me. Cotton and I wanted to do that story, and the higher ups ended up putting the X over that, and they were right to for different reasons. Their reasons were not the same. Ultimately, I'm glad though, because I don't need to introduce another team into the book. Though one or two of the characters that were going to make an appearance in that story may be sort of in the background in 6 and 7. You'll see.
Oh wow! And so I imagine that's kind of difficult to balance, because if you're reading, you're like, oh, I didn't give Stitch her their moment, or I didn't give this character his moment, or something like that. So it's kind of tough for you to say, oh, I forgot to do something with this character per issue.
It is the easiest mistake to make, and I make it all the time. I go through and I'm like, ooh. In fact, I was just writing. I'm working on a Teen Titans Academy issue right now. In fact, you can't see this on my screen, can you? That's good. If you guys zoom in really close, you can see what I'm working on.
Does it reveal Red X? Everyone zoom in now. Take a screenshot. Come on.
Actually, it does.
You're joking. You can't have that lying around.
It's funny that you said that, actually. It actually kind of does. I didn't write those exact words on this page yet, but they're going on to it very soon.
Is this the reveal of Red X?
What's that?
Is this the reveal of Red X? Do you think you're writing correctly?
This that I'm writing right now is not the official reveal.
Yeah. So but it's not Detective Chimp.
It's I don't know. I can't tell you that.
I can neither confirm nor deny. You've never seen Detective Chimp and Red X in a room at the same time. That's all I'm going to say.
That is true. A lot of people in the beginning were thinking it might be Greg. And I mean, I guess technically it could be, right? I mean,
yeah.
He is kind of a genius with, technology and machinery, and maybe he's created something to help him slim down into that outfit. I don't know.
What's the most insane theory you've heard about Red X so far?
Uh, about Red X. I don't know about Red X. I just online, someone was just interacting with me on Twitter asking me if the rumor they heard was true that the character Dane is the son of Constantine, apparently. They call him Dane Constantine on a wiki somewhere. And I was like, I don't know where you're hearing that from.
Who
I think
knows?
people just
Knowing
have a
John
head.
Constantine, it could be. It very well could be.
Honestly, like I'm not gonna deny that, I can't confirm or deny it, but no, I honestly don't know where they heard that from. Their thing was that he was created in 2014 or something like that. And I was like, let me just put this to bed for you. Rafa Sandoval and I created Dane for Teen Titans Academy, and Clayton Henry and I have reintroduced him as Nevermore in the Shazam miniseries.
Oh, amazing.
So I don't know what happened in 2014, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't even working on Justice League Action yet in 2014. I had no idea that I would ever be working for DC at that point.
Oh, amazing. And like Red X, like it's just been one of my favorite things in comics. That's why I was so excited to get this interview, because I was like, oh man, I'm actually going to get the guy who like did Red X. Like, oh, I mean, obviously he's a character originally created in Teen Titan show, but so he's been such a huge character. So what made you say, okay, I want to introduce this kind of new threat, or bring this character back? What made you say that?
It wasn't my idea. It was DC came to me and said, look, we have access. I was doing Titans Academy. They said, we have access. We have gotten clearance to use Red X and to bring him into main continuity. He's a Titans character. I already had my story for this run. And they said, do you want to use Red X? Can you bring him in? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to have to really change things up. It was when we decided, when I said, well, if I do use Red X, I want it to be a new Red X. I don't want it to be the character who was under the mask on the Glenn Murakami Titans show. The first one was Dick Grayson. We already know that. The second one's identity, we don't know. But I said, I don't want to play in that sandbox as much. Certainly, I don't want to reveal who that is, because Glenn himself has said, you're never going to know who that was. And I don't think it's my place to step on his toes. So I said, if we can introduce a new Red X who is potentially one of the students at the Academy, now it's a story about Titans Academy. Now it makes sense to me. And that was when we kind of went back and rethought the story and to include Red X. But for me, it's very exciting. Like I love that character. I love that animated series. And so to get to, usher in a new age with him in the main DC continuity is, just kind of a dream come true for me. Getting the keys to that car is great.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's a tough story. I think when all is said and done, when this run is up around February, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to live with with how this story is going to play out, and the revelations that are going to come out about who this is, but more importantly, why he's doing it. We saw a little bit of it in the yearbook. That last story, Extrication, is very much the origin story of Titans Academy Red X, and that Red X in that story that rescues that kid is the second Red X. That's Red X 2 from the Glenn Murakami show.
Oh, wow.
And then the kid is we are essentially telling you in the last moments of that issue that kid is going to grow up to put on the mask and become the Red X of Titans Academy.
Wow.
So you see a bit of it there, but we're going to learn more. We're going to learn more.
If I squint my eyes, he looks like Detective Chimp. Yeah, I can see it.
You're incorrigible.
It just has to happen, I'm going to get this somehow, I think the editors at DC, their email must be broken or something, because they're not getting my Detective Chimp script. I don't know, my 800-page Detective Chimp script. I wonder what that's about.
People don't understand sort of the way the buckets work at DC. Like people are always like, oh, Red X is Clown Hunter or something like that. And I'm like, guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm not allowed to use Batman characters, or Gotham group characters in the thing. It would be a big undertaking to try to get everybody on board to do that.
So does
The
that sign off
Nightwing,
Condiment King?
yeah, I mean, Condiment King would be a thing that I would have to, really. I got to use him very briefly,
Yeah, in one
and
panel.
but
And I was like,
if I wanted to heavily include Condiment King in a story, I think there'd have to be a big conversation. There'd have to be a lot of throwing about of brains, I think, as Shakespeare put it, over that.
Shakespeare and Condiment King, same thing, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Basically.
So I can't really, I wish I could use Detective Chimp. He would be tough. He's easier because he's not I don't think he falls under the Batman group. Nowadays he falls under the Justice League Dark group, I guess, which is part of the people that I work for under my cotton. So
he's just so busy in all these other titles. It's Detective Chimp.
Is he right now? I don't know. Where is he right now?
I'm pretty sure Ram V Amazing Guy. I'm pretty sure he's doing something with Detective Chimp in Justice League Dark. Like I said, but Detective Chimp, and I assume he has that film coming out next year. Which, by the way, Werner Herzog should totally play Detective Chimp. And I assume he's just getting his Detective Chimp film miniseries. All of this, he's just royalty. Same with
Condiment King. That's a live action movie with Werner Herzog as
wouldn't that be amazing? I was just watching him in Star Wars, and he just has this weird. I want to see just this his really serious Detective Chimp film, but with Werner Herzog just voicing Detective Chimp. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, voicing or maybe like performance capture, where they,
they're just gonna whip Werner Herzog just walking around acting like a monkey.
Yeah, and then you buy that Blu Ray just for the behind the scenes documentary.
He's a method
actor. You just want to watch that.
He goes to the jungle and he just spends a week there watching.
Yeah. That would be what he would do. Yes,
absolutely.
He wouldn't allow the cameras to follow him to do that, though.
Oh no! He'd dress up in a monkey suit and all, and just live in the trees and stuff. But I don't know how we ended up talking about Werner Herzog, but I suppose we'll have to briefly move on. But issue 5 just came out recently, so people can pick that up from their local comic book store. Would I be correct in saying so?
Yeah, Titans Academy number 5 is out now, and Titans Academy number 6 comes out on the 31st of August.
Oh, amazing. So yeah, everyone should go pick this up. I highly recommend it. And like I said, you're doing a really amazing job exploring these characters. So like I said, I'm sure it's very difficult considering that they're all new characters. And because of course there's quite a few legacy characters like Nightwing and Starfire and Raven and Beast Boy, Cyborg. So it's important for you to also, kind of explore them as characters, but while also giving the new people more time.
I wish I could spend all my time working on those characters. I mean, I would love to just spend time with them, especially Starfire. I think, a lot of people, there's a lot of folks out there who have a lot of opinions about
in comic
Dick Grayson. I know, right? About Dick Grayson and his relationships with either Barbara Gordon or with Coriander. And, I always feel like that whole thing gets framed as a Dick Grayson's choice argument. Yeah. And I just feel like it's so disrespectful of Barbara Gordon and Coriander as characters who have their own agency and should be considered, they are just as big heroes and characters as Dick Grayson is. And really, it's kind of let's see what their point of view is. What's their decision point on that? It's not about will Dick Grayson choose Coriander? It's like, will Coriander put up with that crap anymore? Or is she, that's sort of what we did in issue 2 of Titans Academy. I mean, I kind of literally put that whole thing to bed, I thought. So unfortunately, a lot of people are still out there trying to, they think that they're in a relationship, that Starfire and Nightwing are in a relationship in Titans Academy. And I'm here to tell you, read issue 2 again. It didn't go well, the attempt at reigniting that relationship. So I think but I love those characters. I would love to spend more time with them. But there's only so much real estate in the book, and thankfully people are asking for more stories about the kids, so I get to tell those stories, which I'm very
just Gorilla Greg. Everyone else, I'm no, money messing.
Also, why why am I going to write Nightwing stories when Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo are doing their book, which is great? Like let's give credit where it's due. Like those guys are doing a great Nightwing book right now.
But Detective Chimp isn't in it, so what am I not messing that?
You're obsessed.
Absolutely been
You're
amazing.
obsessed. When the reveal happens about the long association between Detective Chimp and Gorilla Greg, you're going to be, when I hear you cheering across the pond is what's going to happen.
Are they all connected somehow? Is it a multiverse of gorillas? I'm just sitting there in my trench coat, smoking a cigarette, and it's all tied together somehow, looking at the board. It all has to be together.
I think those guys might think it's a little speciesist of you to lump monkeys and apes together like that.
If I die at the hands of Detective Chimp and Gorilla Greg, it's a worthy death. It's a good way to go. I always knew it would end like that.
It's a threat with Gorilla Greg because we don't really know as much about him as we think we do. You're going to learn more about him in issues 6 and 7. So, you might think you might have your opinion on Gorilla Greg might completely change after
I have to take down my shrine. It's like, not anymore. Just rip down all the Gorilla Greg posters.
Remember the bloodline. How do you feel about Grodd?
Grodd, yeah, I think he's always just been a really cool character. I think I saw it first he was in an episode of Justice League because he was a walking gorilla who was beating up Green Arrow and Batman, and I was like, okay, it's awesome. And I just have a weird affinity for animals like King Shark and stuff, just Killer Croc, just animals who walk around. So yeah, Gorilla Grodd, I think is a cool character.
But you're more obsessed with Greg than Grodd, right?
Definitely, man.
Greg's like a way better character, right?
Definitely. Wait, does that incriminate me? Actually, if the creator of Gorilla Grodd is somehow watching this, I don't really mean that, I'm only saying that. I'm not yeah, Gorilla Grodd is an amazing character. So yeah, we need more of him. But yeah, so another thing I want to touch on. This was something that was so amazing, and these are actually probably two of my favorite series coming out from DC. It was also Suicide Squad and Teen Titans Academy. And guys, you can check out my interview with Robbie Thompson if you'd like. That's probably from a few weeks ago. But yeah, so this was an amazing crossover series. So how did this come about? Was this your plan from the very start that you wanted to have a crossover with Suicide Squad?
No, not at all. In fact, the Gorilla Greg, you're going to be mad now. The Gorilla Greg story was going to be like issues 2 and 3 instead of being, a Suicide Squad thing. But no, Mike Cotton is the editor on both of those books. And he came to me and he said, hey, would you consider doing a crossover? And I said, wait, in issue 3 of my brand new title? Like, I feel like, why would you make me do that? But I was the low guy on the totem pole, brand new. And I kind of, had to say yes to stuff when it came up and tried to figure out a way to make it work. I think we did, though. We did figure out a way to make it work and make that story still be a Titans Academy story.
Yeah.
At least on the Titans side of it, by focusing on Alinta Bolt and her sort of backstory and learning. She's one of the first characters we really learn a little bit about in Titans Academy, one of the new kids. We created her knowing that she would debut in Future State and Suicide Squad. And the same thing with Summer Zahid, Black Ice. We created her knowing that she would get introduced by a different creative team in the Endless Winter event. So those were characters that we knew more about than all the other characters already. So we kind of got to sort of tell a little bit of Bolt's story there at the beginning, which made me really happy. People really like Bolt, and I think she's great. I think she's a really interesting character. Her way of using the Speed Force is interesting. She's a Speed Force sprinter. Like, she doesn't get the sort of she's not a distance runner. She gets quick bursts of the Speed Force, and that's because she's using a corrupt version of the quick equation. And she's just literally, the paper is torn. She doesn't know the rest of the equation, which may or may not be the actual reason why she only has those bursts of speed. I think we're going to learn more in the future about her sort of her makeup and why she is why this is her particular entry point into the Speed Force.
Definitely.
But certainly she thinks it's because of the ripped up paper that she's got.
Definitely. And so one of my favorite moments in this issue was when we see Red X, when they do, spoiler alert, I guess, for issue 3, but they break into Teen Titans Academy kind of, and as the fight kind of goes on, Red X is kind of like, he doesn't want to kill anyone. He's like, eventually gets to the point where he's like, okay, listen to me, you guys run over there, and Peacemaker's like, what are you protecting them? So maybe, Red X isn't all that bad. So will we see a more maybe human side to Red X soon?
I mean, like I said, I like characters who are complicated,
Yeah.
and that it's not an easy question about whether they're a hero, a villain, or an anti-hero. Those are the characters that I find are the most engaging. So Red X for me is the hero of his story,
Yeah.
and like all the best villains, I think. And so, yeah, I mean, we've already seen in the yearbook, a story that tells you that, he's in some ways he was victimized, as a kid, raised as, sort of a foster child scheme by a couple of black mask henchmen who, were pocketing government, funds to bring in these kids and supposedly raise them. But in fact, they're just training them to be, the criminals, of the thugs of the future, of Bloodhaven. So he's already got a kind of a little bit of a tragic backstory there. And the question is, if you hear what Red X2 says to him in that issue as well, in that story, he has, Red X2 seems to have a lot of opinions about the Titans and how they do what they do, and Nightwing and how he does what he does. And you think if you're a little kid who grows up with hearing that stuff,
yeah,
you're going to have, distinct opinions about things, and you may be right or you may be wrong. I mean, I think it's always more interesting when you're a little bit right and a little bit wrong.
Yeah, definitely. And like you just gave a perfect explanation now, which I've actually seen some of that in your work, which I want to get into soon. But we see one of my favorite characters in the annual, Stitch, and we see that they actually have a relation with Dr. Fate. So
Yeah.
how did that come about? Did you say, okay, well, maybe this magic user created Stitch? Did you come up with that concept?
Yeah, no, I mean, I said, I had this idea for Stitch being a magically animated rag doll that is sentient, and has a life, and is not technically really alive. I think the original pitch for Stitch was, Stitch isn't actually alive, but Stitch is the life of the party, in every way. Like, people just really want to be around Stitch. That kind of evolved. So we sort of see Stitch being on the outside in the yearbook, in that story, that opening story, Stitch in Time. And we sort of learn why. I mean, Stitch isn't like everybody else, and they know that they're not like everybody else. It's a curiosity to them. They just sort of don't see things the same way. Stitch is baffled and very surprised to learn that they have a friend in Dane in that issue, because Stitch, it turns out, doesn't really have the vocabulary for understanding what friendship is. Part of that is being this magically animated doll, but also some of that has to do with the fact that Stitch is raised by Dr. Fate, who is essentially Stitch's kind of dad, who sends them to the academy to learn about life and being a hero and all that. And I think, we're making a little bit of a statement there too about maybe, Dr. Fate's bedside manner, maybe not being exactly personable. I don't write Dr. Fate, so it's a thing I put out there, and maybe a thread that'll get picked up in the future, or maybe it's just Stitch. I don't know. But that little reveal at the end, I really love that moment. I love the grounded moment of a conversation between, parent and child, essentially, but with these extraordinary magical characters. I think that we get that with the Zatara family. We get to see a family dynamic among magical characters. I like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, it's very rare for me to ever laugh at a comic book. Like, I mean, I do occasionally, but it's like, I guess it's kind of hard to get humor across in comic books. But there's just this two panels in issue, which issue is it? Issue 4, where Stitch is kind of like in her trench coat and she's lighting a cigarette and then she catches on fire. And I couldn't stop giggling. I thought that was just the most ridiculous thing. It was amazing. So I just had to give you, I just had to commend you. And I thought that was an amazing moment. But
there was a question early on about whether we could even do that, because they have a policy about not having characters smoking in the books, and so I'm all for that. I mean, I think presenting that, if kids are going to read it, you don't want to glamorize, something that's pretty awful and deadly bad for your health. But I said, yeah, but the thing is, Stitch doesn't have a mouth. Like, Stitch isn't really going to smoke the cigarette. Stitch is doing this affectation in this moment. So, and it leads to ultimately, disaster. I think the message here is don't smoke. don't use a lighter. Like, don't try.
Or you'll set yourself on fire like Stitch.
I mean, maybe. So I think ultimately cooler heads prevailed on that one, and they said, all right, I guess we'll go with whatever your message is here too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some message somewhere, just deep rooted in there. But yeah, so Future State, before we move on to something else, our last Teen Titans Academy thing, but Future State. So this is kind of like a story set in the future, and we get to see some of the members there. And so is this definitely the way this book will end up, or is there some maybe wiggle room, or is this just one, reality that could happen?
It's funny, people ask me this question, and it's like, I can't read the future. Can you? Like, I know just as much as you do about what's going to happen in the future, and as much as our characters know about what's going to happen in the future. I have ideas about how I'd like to see it go, but that's my coy way of not telling you the real answer.
And there was a severe lack of, I'm not even going to say, I think you know who I'm going to say, Conman King and Detective Chimp, but I'll let it slide just this once, because I'm sure you'll find a way around that. Almost certainly.
I had no idea what I was getting into today. I did not know that this was going to be a Detective Chimp hype podcast.
It's an intervention because you haven't had him enough in your comics. We care about you, Tim. We just, you can overcome this and just, include him. No, I'm only messing around.
You're getting your Greg stories. Calm down.
It's not enough, I'm greedy. I want my little grubby paws and all these, ape stories. I flew too close to the sun, Icarus. So I had that little glimpse of Gorilla Greg, and I just needed more. But so let's also touch on this Shazam, this new miniseries. I absolutely loved issue 1. So let's touch on this. Like, how did this come about? Because we do see a bit of Billy Batson in Teen Titans, and people are a bit confused as to why he's there, because as far as they know, he's just a regular human kid. So did this spin-off come around, or I suppose this miniseries, did this come when you were working on Teen Titans, or was this kind of agreed beforehand?
No, I started them at the same time, actually. In fact, What's weird is I wrote that issue 1 back in December and January, when I was at the same time I was writing Titans Academy #1. And so it's a little, it's hard to look at it now for me, because I think, so much has happened with these characters in the several issues of Titans Academy that have taken place this year, that I feel like I would do things a little bit differently here. But I think ultimately, thankfully, it still sort of fits into the continuity and makes sense timing wise. But it was always the plan. I mean, the plan was, when I came in fact, there was talk in the very beginning that I'd be doing an ongoing Shazam title at the same time that Titan was happening. But I said, look, I want to do that, but my pitch was ultimately rejected, which was, well, it's a good story, so I'm hoping they'll still let me do it someday. So I'm not going to tell it to you, but it would have meant that those 2 books would have, like this miniseries does, would have spun out of each other. They would have been in the same continuity, working with each other throughout the run. And because Billy still would have been an Academy student for that. I really wanted Billy to be at the Academy, because I thought, when you're Billy Batson and you don't have control of your powers and abilities anymore. In fact, the original pitch for this was that he didn't have any abilities at all. His powers were completely gone. What do you do? Do you just go back to a regular school and go back to your regular life? And I felt that Billy has the heart of a hero, and he's got the training of a hero. He's lived as a hero for so long that it seemed like Titans Academy is a smart place for him to be, where he can go and learn from somebody like Nightwing, who doesn't have any special magical abilities, but is a hero nonetheless, of the First Order, and so that's what I would do with him. So that was the concept, and he just became so much more integral to the basic plot of this story that I'm spinning. And so what he's doing now in this Shazam miniseries is integral to the larger story, and is going to inform everything that happens as we march on this horrible death march to future state.
Amazing. And so can people pick up issue 1 from their local comic book store?
Issue 1 and issue 2.
Oh, issue 2. I think issue 2 is on its way now. It takes about 2 weeks for my comics to arrive, but so people can pick up issue 2 and issue 1.
Yeah. And I just signed off on issue 3 today, final. So that's going to the printers now. So yeah, it's and then just one more after that. Issue 3 ends with what I hope is something kind of shocking for everyone. And issue 4, we're going to sort of deal with that shocking reveal at the end of 3. So.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. And so, like, one last thing I want to touch on before we move back onto the Long Halloween, a concern that, like, Teen Titans Academy and, like, Billy Batson, they're all kind of young characters. And, like, I think you do an amazing job here, because sometimes in stories you can kind of tell when the dialogue is stale and no actual teenager would speak like this. So is it kind of tough for you to kind of nail the voices of these different characters and kind of get into their heads?
I mean, that's the horrible thing about being me, and I think this is true of a lot of writers, certainly the ones I talk to, is how easy it is to like slip into everybody's voices and and sort of become a bunch of characters all having a conversation with each other. It is I'm you see some of them here behind me. This is very, very few of my action figures. I am a huge action figure collector. And I have, since I was the way I think I became a storyteller is, as a kid, I would play out stories with my toys, with my action figures. And they would have, really intense, dramatic situations with big stakes and, just horrible things playing on, and they would all have dialogue, and I'd even do the voices. And so that was training ground for me. And that is, I now spend my adult years playing with those toys still. I just do it in a different way, with the keyboard and the paper in front of me. But although, sometimes it's actually like, it's an actual thing where I'm playing out, like a conversation.
It's for work. If anyone comes in,
happens
it's for work.
What are we going to do about the, oh, well, we're going to go and have to talk to them, and then they go and talk to them over here. This is this very serious job of creating comic book story.
You have to lock yourself up, but it's kind of like method acting. You have to.
I should be locked up. You're right. I ought to be locked up, put away for a long time.
But you're just in the cells of Arkham. Now, speaking of that perfect little segue there by me, Long Halloween, we get to see
segue. Wow.
Brilliant.
Wow.
I did a Suicide Squad interview with Rob Williams, the amazing writer, but I brought up Boomerang.
Robbie Williams? Robbie Williams?
No. Rob Williams. There is actually someone called Rob Williams. Robbie Thompson and Rob Williams.
I see. I thought it was Robbie Williams. I was very interested in that interview. That would have been fascinating.
Imagine, yeah, it's just like one hybrid, like, Cyborg and Beast Boy. But he brought up the word boomerang, and it was my time to shine. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I led that into the Suicide Squad, but
that's amazing.
Yeah,
well done.
When I die and someone just plays a montage of my greatest moments, I want that just to be there. Because it's just, I just have to brag about it. I'm so proud. So we brought up Long Halloween. What an adaptation. I really like this. So the thing is, like, when it comes to certain adaptations, is there more like of a response? Because if you're doing something like Teen Titans, and if you, I don't know, mess up a character like, I don't know, Girly Greg or something, that's your character that you've kind of messed up. So I suppose there's some kind of certainty in that. But if you mess up like the Long Halloween adaptation, that's something that's not yours, and that's something that like so many fans cherish. So is there a bit more responsibility there in adapting it?
It's a different thing. I mean, they are there's a legacy to the characterization, specifically to that book. Now, this is also the case with, if I'm just writing, like when I'm writing Teen Titans Academy, when I'm writing scenes for Starfire and Raven, that still is a consideration, because I I have my view of how these characters talk and how they behave and what their history is together. And it doesn't always match up to what everybody else thinks and what everybody else sees. The problem with an adaptation of a comic book to screen, like Long Halloween, is that so much, we read comic books in a different way than we watch movies and TV. So much of comics is filled, or, the story is filled in by you, the reader. And, in between panels and in between pages and in between issues, especially in like Long Halloween, where you got an issue, then you waited a month and your mind was spinning and you're thinking about all the things Batman is doing that month. And then the next holiday hits the following month. And then you see that play out, but there's all this time in between when stuff is happening. Well, as fans, we just have headcanon and we sort of fill in all, whether we know that we're doing it or not, we're filling it all in back here in our lizard brain, and it's all happening. Yeah. And so creating an adaptation, you really have to bring yourself to it. You have to bring your interpretation of a work of art and sort of re-envision that for the screen. It's a huge responsibility because not only are you now having to get Batman right, but you're having to get, a close approximation of Jeff and Tim's Batman. And so that's, it's a difficult thing, but it is something that is, I think all comic book creators deal with when you're dealing in a universe that's established and with established characters that people have known for a long time. Is it easier to write an original character? Yeah, because like you said, if I screw something up, I get to say, hey, it's my character to screw up, so leave me alone. But like, I think, early on Titans Academy, there were people telling me, well, Stitch wouldn't say that. And I'm like, excuse me? I don't think you can tell me that, but okay. But I don't think that that's wrong. I do think though that fans feel a sense of ownership over characters, and I was surprised with Titans Academy how quickly some fans felt ownership over some of these new characters. But I think that's wonderful. I think that means that they love them and that they care about them and that they will sort of take care of them when I'm gone, because I'm not always going to be dealing with these characters. Somebody else is going to come in and take care of them, and then I'm going to have the OOC police going after those guys instead of me, which has been something by the way I had never heard before, which was, that's OOC, that's out of character. I was like, oh, out of character. I was like, aren't I the guy writing the book? Don't I tell you what's in character? But no, what are you going to do? People really love the characters.
Comic book fans are a different breed.
Yes, and with the Long Halloween, it was something I went into eyes wide open, thinking, this is a trap. There's no way I can envision this in a way that everybody's going to get on board. But if I am true to my ideas about the book and what I think is the movie that's in this book, then there's going to be people who come along for the ride and who like it. And hopefully it'll be enough people that, they get to make the budget back on sales of the movie. And, it's been successful enough that I think that we managed to get it just right. Remember, it's not just my vision for interpreting Jeff's and Tim's book, but it's Butch Lukic and Chris Palmer and Jim Krieg and a whole host of artists and, our Michael Gadd, our composer, and our editor and our everybody who works on and contributes to these movies. It's a big team effort. It's not something we do in a vacuum. We all work together and try to make something that we think honors the spirit of the thing that everybody knows and loves. Hopefully it's taken, in that with that respect.
Yeah, definitely. I think you did an amazing job there. But like, I know for me, I always consider, like, there's always all these different kinds of Batmans to me. I know, like, Alan Grant and John Wagner stuff from the 90s, I consider that in its own universe. And like Batman Long Halloween and Batman Year One, that kind of has that noirish feel, and it feels like somewhere you wouldn't really like to be. And now there's like James Tinian's Batman, which is amazing. Josh Williamson is coming on now, and I've always felt like there's all these different versions of Batman. So I think you were like, and then when I was watching Long Halloween, the opening, like you could hear that like kind of haunting music as like the slideshow play. I was like, oh yeah, this feels like the Long Halloween. So it's like tough for you to kind of nail it and look at it and say, okay, well, this feels like how the Long Halloween adaptation would be.
Well, I mean, look, when you're talking about the visuals and the shadows and the lighting and Gotham City and the way it sort of presents itself in the movies and the music and all of that, those beautiful background paintings, the you're talking about a whole bunch of people, like I was saying earlier, who have also worked on this. My very, very little of that is me. Some of every now and then I will say, I think this needs to be like this. I like, for instance, in the script on page 1 of the script, I said, look, this opening scene should feel as close to a shot for shot, panel for panel from the first scene of the book as we can get. Because I want people to know that the people who made this movie know the book and love the book enough that we understand the importance of this opening scene. And that is ultimately how it was put together. And I'm really proud of it. So I will get in and get my opinions in there on how things work. But in terms of visuals and music and things like that, those become the way that the artists interpret the stuff that I've put on there and I put on the page, and the stuff, bringing their own unique talents to it, plus bringing their own interpretation of the book to it. So like I say, it's a big team effort. So is it satisfying when it all works? Absolutely. Is it astonishing and baffling that it works? From my perspective, yes, completely. Because I write the script and then send it down the river, and all of these people work on this thing and make this movie, and then I don't see it until you do. And the fact that it comes together is, to me, feels like it's divine intervention, because I just don't know I don't know what everybody's doing for several years as they work on these things. So it's like to me, it's like a magic trick. It's not like magic. There's a line in Masters of the Universe Revelation that I wrote about this. It's kind of the reverse of that line. It's or maybe it is that line. Eva Lynn has a line about, when she talks about other people and they see what she can do, and to them it's sorcery, but to her it's magic. And that's the way I see the way these movies ultimately come together. Wow. And the way that comic books come together when artists interpret the words that I put on the page. It's to them, it's sorcery, it's alchemy. But to me, it's like a beautiful magic trick. It's a rabbit out of a hat, and I have no idea how they did it. So that's the joy of doing it the way doing these things the way I do it, where I'm, there at the beginning of the process, and then I get to come in and see how it all came out in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's one thing I have to commend you on. I watched part 1 on my birthday, like just a couple of days ago. Like we set it up and I was like, okay, yeah, but what a great way to spend my birthday. And there was
Happy birthday.
Thanks so much. I assume, everyone just sent me, like, I'm practically rich off that birthday money, going sweet comic book shopping. But no, so there's one scene in particular, and I'm a sucker for good deaths in films. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like when someone gets shot, like when someone's about to die and they give an amazing one-liner and then they go, that's my favorite thing. And there was one line, I have to admit, I won't go into spoilers, but one character is shot and he says, "You can't know, you're missing too many pieces." And then he dies. And I was thinking, oh, that's amazing. And I haven't been able to get that out of my head. So I just have to commend you on that. I thought that was a brilliant line. So good job there.
Thanks. We took some liberties with that scene a little bit. But yeah, I like the way that ended up coming out. And I think that there are questions about how that scene plays out that I don't see anybody out there asking. And hopefully one of these days somebody's going to ask the question, and maybe I'll give the answer. We'll see.
Yeah, but I mean,
cryptic. Was that cryptic enough?
It was weird? So cryptic. I'm sitting here thinking, was it something to do with the propeller or something? What's this crack on about? But yeah, no. And I loved how you deal with very specific characters. And one in particular, like my favorite Batman villain of all time, hands down, is Two-Face Harvey Dent, because I love the aspect of, and I remember I read this somewhere, but it was like how every Batman villain is like Dark Mirror, an aspect of Batman. Like how, and of course, Two-Face is the side of him that seeks for justice.
The Killing Joke explores that concept, right?
Yeah.
and they literally we're two sides of the same coin, I think is something they say in Killing Joke. But
And it's
yeah,
like Scarecrow is the part of him that induces fear into people. And it's like all these different, and Bane is his strength, and like all these different kind of things. And then Joker, the reason why he is his enemy is because he's just the complete opposite kind of, I think, or something like that. But yeah.
there's a line in Long Halloween that I put in during the biplane fight with Joker and Batman. He says, Joker says to Batman, "Don't you understand? We're the same, you and I. We both love a good puzzle."
Yes.
And that's what it comes from, that line from the Joker that opens up the whole thing for Batman to put it together and to make the case in his mind that Alberto is the holiday killer.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I really loved how you explored the character of Harvey Dent because, like I said, he's a really good character. And I always felt like sometimes he can kind of be adapted as like, no, he's just this crazy guy who's half, but no, there's more to him. There's a part of him that only really like he only wanted to do good and he was punished for that. So he obviously kind of has this outlook, and Batman kind of feels this responsibility, like he failed to save his friend. And like I think you really explore that there, like especially like towards the end, like you can see that Batman does feel sympathy for, like, he felt as if he could have done something, he should have saved Harvey Dent. And I loved how you kind of portrayed that little decline you can kind of see Harvey go through as a character, and you can kind of see him progress. So was it fun for you to get to play with the character of Two-Face slash Harvey Dent?
I'm a huge Two-Face fan. He was my favorite villain when I was a kid, and I remember reading the annual number 14 from 1990. It's got that great Neil Adams Two-Face headshot on the cover, and it just was the greatest thing in the world to me. And I love that character because he represents to Batman, he represents a failure.
Yeah.
And there are, you could argue that, Joker represents a failure because he hasn't, taken him down or something. I don't know. But really, Two-Face was, as Harvey Dent was his friend, and not just his friend, he was the White Knight, as Chris Nolan gave us, the White Knight versus the Dark Knight. And so he does see himself in Harvey and Harvey's story. Batman wears two faces, and he knows that. And so he sees Harvey Dent as a cautionary tale. But the biggest failure, I think, that, in my opinion, that Bruce Wayne, that Batman must feel, is that he didn't figure out that Harvey was dealing with mental illness, that he hid it enough, or maybe he didn't, but everyone most everyone ignored it. And that's the kind of thing that nowadays we're much more attuned to. We pay attention to people's mental health around us, and we say, "Hey, are you okay?" And you're not alone, and let's talk. And but that's not. But there are always those situations where you feel, "Oh, I could have done more. I could have said more. Why didn't I check in with this person? Why didn't I know what they were struggling with? And maybe I could have helped." I think that that's for Bruce Wayne and for Batman. That's just a real personal failing for him on that. He's just going to feel that way because that's how we would all feel in that situation. If our friend we found out that they were dealing with, severe mental illness.
Yeah.
So I love the character of Two-Face for all sorts of reasons. The Dark Knight Returns, the concept of a reformed Two-Face who has, who looks like Harvey Dent again, but when he looks in the mirror, still sees the scars. Yeah. Oh man, like that is rich storytelling. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So real and honest. I love it.
Definitely. And like I said, I think you did a brilliant job with the characters. Like I could feel these characters saying that. And I remember I actually had to take myself out with something, thinking, "Oh, that's such an amazing line," or, "Oh, that character would say something like that." And like I was kind of coming up with something that they could say, and then they would kind of say something like that. I was, "Oh, brilliant." And so was there one character in particular from the Batman lore that you didn't expect to have so much fun writing for? Like, was it maybe Mad Hatter, Scarecrow? Was there any character in particular that you said, "Oh yeah, I really like writing for this character"?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. There's so many, but
Solomon Grundy, because he has such a rich dialect.
he doesn't. He like it's one line that he gets to say over and over again. So but I think there's a couple. I mean, first of all, I had a lot of fun in that fear toxin scene with Scarecrow and Batman. I really love in part 2. I really love. There's one line.
Your mother.
Where there's one line where Scarecrow, I think it might be the last thing he says to him. He says, "Happy Mother's Day." This is, pardon my language here, but he says, "Happy Mother's Day, prick." and I just loved that very human, petty way that Crane talks to Batman in that moment. That's what he thinks about Batman. He just thinks of him as a prick.
Amazing.
And that's so I had like fun with that. But the character that I really got to know more because I got to write him, and a character that I got to expand upon a little bit is the Roman, Carmine Falcone.
Yeah.
I think that was the most sort of rewarding character to get to spend some time with for me. I felt it was important to get a more well-rounded idea of who he is, and to get the as I say, the complicated,
Absolutely.
He does some good things, he does some bad things, and we kind of learn that about the Waynes too in these movies. There's good and there's bad, and you kind of have to measure them against each other and hope that the good outweighs the bad. There are two sides to everything, right? I mean, it's integral to the story of Long Halloween and Two-Face to look at things two ways. And it was important for me to see the part of Carmine that is a good man trying to do something good for the world. Ultimately, he's probably wrong about all of it and doing everything the wrong way, but he is the hero of his story. And that's what makes him interesting. And that's what made him interesting to me. The scene that I added, I basically kept the camera rolling, where in the book we cut away, is when when Thomas Wayne takes the bullets out of young Carmine Falcone. I wrote a scene of an interaction between young Bruce Wayne and
you give what you take.
All you get is all you take.
Yeah.
And which is a very Carmine sort of philosophy, I think. And sort of threading the origin of Two-Face's coin, having come from Falcone through Bruce Wayne to Batman to Harvey, was something I wanted to have fun with. But that scene goes a long way to teaching us about who Carmine is and what he thinks, but also how he's influenced Gotham City and how he will influence Gotham City. He kind of creates Batman in that moment. He creates Two-Face and Batman while he's laying there on that desk by giving Bruce Wayne the coin that he'll end up giving to Harvey, and by telling young Bruce Wayne that criminals are superstitious, and that is part of the foundation of the reason why Bruce Wayne puts on the bat costume, and does what he does.
Definitely. And so was there anything from the comic that you wanted to fit into the film, but you just really couldn't because of, I don't know, time, or it didn't fit into the scene? So was there any moments that you would have liked to fit in, or any characters?
All kinds of things. The biggest one that everybody's talking about is the Riddler does not appear in part 2.
Yes.
And that is, I would have loved to have had him in there, and I tried to get him in there, but that story worked as an issue of the book because the book came out monthly, and it was about halfway through the run of the book when you needed a recap of who the suspects are for Holiday. And it's a very clever way to recap those suspects. And but in the movie, it just stopped everything. The movie grinded to a halt, and we at a point when we really needed it to pick up the pace and keep moving on to the next thing. And so there wasn't a way to do it and make it satisfying. If I were to include Riddler, I would have had to have created a whole new story for him, whole cloth. And then it's like, well, then what am I doing? Like, then it's not Long Halloween. For me, what made more sense was to simply turn the camera over to what was happening at Wayne Manor on that day, while the Riddler and Falcone stuff is happening on the other side of town. So I didn't want to negate that issue from the book. I wanted it to still happen in the world of the movie. We're just not, our cameras just aren't pointed at it. So.
Wow. So Riddler is out there somewhere, doing whatever he can. Of course, he unfortunately did not solve the case, but he was close there. But yeah, absolutely. And so there's been another scene that I loved in it from that. I just had to touch on it. There were two scenes that I thought were really funny. The first one was when a calendar man was like, and the security guard said, "Okay, what day is it today, Julian?" And he was saying all days, like it's the 305th leap year or something. And then he says, "It's also Taco Tuesday." He's like, "Yeah." And he gets, I thought that was so funny. And then there's the second one where Solomon Grundy and Two-Face, spoiler alert, kind of, they team up, and Solomon Grundy's on the ground and Two-Face just kicks him and says, get up off your ass, and they walk away. It's such just a one line that it was so
Move
funny.
your ass, Grundy.
Why would Two-Face, like, in this really serious moment, like, come on, get off your ass, and they just walk away? I thought that was amazing. So
that Taco Tuesday bit I added in when I was at the recording session with David Desmalchin, who plays Calendar Man. Amazing. And it was the first day I met him, and he was recording his lines for part one. And I just was bowled over by not only how good he is in the role, but also what a great person David Desmalchin is to work with. He is one of the kindest, smartest people, and so enthusiastic, so excited to be a part of this. Here's a guy who was in his first film role was, in Dark Knight, which is pulls heavily from Long Halloween. He's Polka Dot Man, right? He's in Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Ant-Man and Ant-Man and Wasp. He's on The Flash. He's, he is this, dominating force in DC and in the comic book genre. And here he is so thrilled, beyond thrilled and excited to be doing this Calendar Man role in this movie. Found him to be so delightful that I said, I was writing part two while that was happening. In fact, it was in the recording studio. I was typing, scenes while he was doing his work. And I said, I got to find more stuff for Calendar Man to do in this. And I don't have a lot of space for it, but if I can get just a page that is just memorable and funny and interesting and weird, that is so on brand for him, let me try to do that. That's where the Taco Tuesday little bit came out of.
And I meant heads. That
was the second part, the I meant heads thing. I was just trying to find economical ways to include Calendar Man, not because I thought Calendar Man really needed to be there. It's because I just love David Desmalchin to death.
Absolutely. What an amazing character. But yeah, so another question I want to ask regarding the Long Halloween. If you had a choice, is there any other comic book you'd like to adapt onto the big screen?
Oh, well, I can't, it's hard to say because there are so many, first of all, but it's also hard to say because I don't know if they'll happen if I say them. And I would like them to happen. I will say this, because I think I've talked about this in interviews before. There was a time when I pitched doing an adaptation of the Batman story that was happening in comics when I jumped on to reading them as a kid. And that was Batman. Well, it was around the time that I jumped on. It was Batman Year 3. And then that led into Lonely Place of Dying. And that was Marv Wolfman did those. And it was after Jason Todd had died. Batman was losing it. And Nightwing came back to Gotham to deal with Batman. And it was the first time that he came back since they had not had a very good they had kind of a falling out. But he was, the idea of the son coming home and to try to talk some sense into the father, and after the brother had died. And all of that was so interesting as a kid for me reading that. It was all about these established characters dealing with huge emotional consequences, some from the stories that had happened right before, I came into the book. I say that that's when I started reading it, but in fact, now that I think about it, no, I read Death in the Family when it happened. So really Death in the Family was earlier for me, because I called the number. You got to call a 900 number, a toll number, to vote on whether Jason Todd lives or dies.
What did you vote for?
Well, actually, no, it's funny. I didn't call the number. I wanted to call the number, but my parents wouldn't let me
Ah.
because you had to pay money to do it. It would have shown up on the phone bill.
Who
And
would
they
you
were
have
like, "You're
voted
not
for?
paying that."
Yes or no?
I would have voted to kill him.
All right, this is just about concludes my interview, everyone. How could you? What an amazing character. Don't even say that about
Listen,
Jason Todd.
here's the deal, Daniel. It's not because I didn't like Jason Todd. It's not that. It was because it was the beginning of me as a storyteller. I love huge consequences, big stakes,
As a
right?
kid, you were like, I want to kill this guy.
And let me tell you, you asked what story would I like to adapt for the screen? That year 3 Lonely Place of Dying story that introduces Tim Drake as Robin, all of that would not have happened if Jason Todd had lived in Death in the Family.
But you know,
So
there's an alternate reality where maybe he became Condiment King or something. You can't write that off. We'll never know.
we might not have Tim Drake. Come on, man.
Yeah,
We
I
might not
mean,
have Tim Drake if Jason Todd had survived. Look, you got Jason back. He came back. You got him.
it could go either way, man. It could go either way. You know, you can't sully this blow, man. But yeah, no, absolutely. So touching on there, like stuff like the Long Halloween, and another character who I think, of course, the Joker. I feel like he's an amazing villain, but I fear he's suffered oversaturation. Kind of like there's so like Batman has the great, probably quite possibly the greatest rogue story of all time. Maybe possibly rivaled by Spider-Man, but I definitely see Batman as having the greatest. And then like a character like the Joker, who I think is amazing, but he's just in so much. And so when I heard he was in the Long Halloween, I was a bit skeptical because I knew, of course, he was in the comic. But I really enjoyed like the way he wrote Joker. Like and like you know he kind of has that same dialect. Like you know he says kind of the same thing sometimes I've seen. But in your one, like he actually says these kind of original things, but in the same tone. And I don't know what it was, but I just really liked the way you wrote Joker. I think he said something funny when he was running away from Carmine Falcone. He was like, "No, I'm not gonna kill you." See that, and he walked away, and I thought it was so funny. But yeah, so like, was it easier for you to write the Joker?
He is, I wrote those movies as a live action story that I knew they would end up animating, but I wanted to look at it as a live action movie. And because I felt if I looked at it that way, I would give the voices to the characters a little bit of a different edge, and it would feel a little bit more, I don't know. It would feel less like a cartoon and more like, a cinematic experience for me as the writer. And however, Joker to me is the ultimate disruptor who in that story is basically like Bugs Bunny or like Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit's a good one because he's like Roger Rabbit who's in the real world. He's a cartoon who's like walking through the real world, disrupting everything, being wild, and nutty and driving everyone, up the wall. And so that was how I approached it. He's like this, he's a cartoon in the middle of a live action movie who just is doing cartoonish things. And that to me is that's my way in on the Joker. But then you get somebody like Troy Baker to voice him, and
Lovely person.
he's so talented, and his Joker is so good, and it has so many of the qualities that Mark Hamill's Joker gave us. And you can tell his Joker is informed by the legacy of the Jokers that have come before, but it's its own thing. Troy's Joker is Troy's Joker. He's hilarious but really dark, which is how you want the Joker to be, right? A lot of people tell me that they laughed out loud at some of the jokes and the lines that Joker had in Long Halloween, and to me that's the greatest compliment. Like sometimes you get Joker and he's not funny.
Yeah.
And admittedly, he's not the best comedian, right? But he's got to have one or two gems. There's got to be one or two lines that he likes.
Nancy, hold my calls. I thought that was just so funny.
I have to terminate someone.
Brilliant impression there, by the way. That was really good Joker.
That's That was so bad.
Nailed.
I got to write. One of the first jobs I had was on that show Justice League Action, in which Mark Hamill played Joker. So I got to write for Mark Hamill doing Joker right at the beginning of my career. And I had a very similar, sort of take on him then. those years ago, where, in an episode called Watchtower Tours, where Booster Gold is selling tours of the Watchtower, the Justice League Watchtower, on the side to make a little cash when he's supposed to be on watch duty. And
that's the most Booster Gold thing to do.
Great Booster Gold thing, right? Joker infiltrates the tour wearing a costume as this woman, and you don't know it's Joker until he takes off the costume and you realize it's him. And then he's got all these ridiculous lines, like, and there's this one moment where they want to call, Booster needs to call Batman, and Joker hands Booster his cell phone, and he's like, he's on my speed dial. I just love little things like that, and Mark Hamill did an amazing job delivering it in the same way that Troy Baker just did an incredible job of bringing Joker to life. I mean, I'm so grateful that we got Troy to do it, because
the cast was fantastic.
The whole cast is incredible. Joker is not a main character in that story.
Yeah.
And so, I to get somebody of the caliber of Troy to come in and voice Joker in that movie was a real bonus for us. I was very grateful that he agreed to do it. That cast is incredible, not the least of which Nia Rivera, the late Nia Rivera as Catwoman, who just brought Catwoman to a whole new place. I just love what she did with Catwoman, and I just wish she could have seen the results and seen the final product, because I think people will be talking about her Catwoman for years to come.
Definitely.
Same way
Absolutely.
they'll be talking about Josh Duhamel, who is so
Jensen
good.
Ackles and all these different people.
Jensen Ackles is amazing. He was born to play Batman, but Josh Duhamel, I wasn't sure if he could do Harvey and Two-Face until he did it. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be so good. And he's great.
Yeah,
really
and all these amazing stuff, Titus Welliver and so much more. It was all just so good. Yes. But another question I want to ask you is, I noticed there was obviously some liberties you took, and you changed things up, which I really like. It actually worked in the favor, because I was like, if they do change it up, will it really work? But it worked spectacularly. And so I wonder, is Batman a character? Because I remember while watching, I was thinking, man, I'd love to see what Tim would do with his own Batman. Like, if you could just write Batman comic, what would it look like? So, is Batman a character you'd like to write more of? Is he a character you'd like to do some more work on?
Absolutely. I came into DC, and when I started writing Titans Academy, another editor came to me and said, I kind of work outside the system, outside of main continuity. And if you've got a book you want to pitch me, I'd love to help you make it. And so I pitched him a story that now we're not making. That editor ended up leaving after we started the process, and so that book went away. But it was a Bat family story. But Daniel, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I pitched a story, a Bat family book that did not include Batman as a character.
What? What was it? Just was he replaced by Condiment King this whole time? This was the big
It was Detective Chimp.
All right, oh man, this is too much for me. My head just Suicide Squad exploded.
I was introducing as the new Condiment King.
Ooh, what? It gets so much more. I can't handle this.
Condiment Chimp.
Oh, Condiment Chimp. You see, this is where the magic happens. We have it nailed. Boom, perfect. But yeah, no, Batman is a character I definitely love to see you do more work on. But who's a villain you didn't get to include in the Long Halloween who you'd like to include in if you did ever get to work on Batman?
I have one villain that I am desperately trying to bring into the main DC continuity.
Killer Moth?
No, Killer Moth's a character in DC continuity. There is a character who debuted in animation in an episode of Justice League Action that I wrote.
Who is this?
That I would love to bring into DC main continuity, and that is the finale episode of Justice League Action is an episode called She Wore Red Velvet, in which Booster Gold comes up against a mysterious villain from the future, traveling in time, named Red Velvet, who turns out to be the woman he may or may not have left at the altar to come back in time to be the hero we know today. Red Velvet is, to me, by the way, spoilers, it turns out, so he goes this whole episode thinking that the reason she turned evil and became this villain, Red Velvet, Margot, his fiance, the reason this happened is because he left her at the altar. And it's Batman who puts together the truth. And it's not that leaving her at the altar drove her mad. It's marrying Booster Gold. They went through with it in the future. And he was the worst husband ever and drove her to a life of supervillainy. And that is Red Velvet. And I would love to bring her in.
Absolutely.
So that's my pitch. That's my pitch, DC.
We need it. Get
Your
it trending.
move.
Come on, yeah, get that trending on Twitter. Gorilla Greg, Red Velvet, Economy King, Detective Chim team book, maybe. You know, we could just get that rolling. I have so much fun with this channel.
What team would that be? How many of them are there? You say Greg,
Chimp, Condiment King, and Red Velvet.
King and Red Velvet. Well, there's 2 villains, possibly 3 there. Detective Chimp is not really a villain, Daniel. Do you consider Detective Chimp a villain?
I consider we're all Detective Chimp. He's more of a mindset, really. You know, aren't we all Detective Chimp in a way?
So maybe Detective Chimp is sort of the Charlie from Charlie's Angels, kind of the mission, the leader, the team leader, the Oracle. He's like the Oracle who sort of puts the team together. He's Amanda Waller, and they're the Suicide Squad.
Exactly. Boom. You know, DC, give me a call. You know, I assume you have my emails from all those Economy King and Detective Chimp pages that I mailed you. So. Yes,
and they certainly know how to write me because they do it when they're yelling at me about something.
Of course.
Come on, DC, like, you know, use that email for good and greenlight Daniel's and my Detective Chimp Squad book. Now, that's a terrible title. We got to think of a good title for it.
It's okay. We have all the time in the world. 50-50. Get those sweet IP royalty checks.
Daniel, we literally have all the time in the world because they're never going to greenlight it.
I'll be sitting here in a wheelchair in my 80s, you know. Oh, one day.
Wait, what are you smoking? What are you in your 80s? What were you?
In my 80s, when I'll be rich by then, so I just won't care. I'll already have my Condiment King script out, so I've basically reached, my pinnacle. So it's all just downhill from there, you know.
Is that your idea about old people, that they're all smoking cigarettes? Or
yeah, once everyone goes through that old person rite of passage, when they get turned down to do their Condiment King series, they turn to the cigarettes. It's heartbreaking.
I think what you're pitching is that by the time you're 80, cigarettes will be completely healthy. We'll have like beyond impossible cigarettes
with the flying cars and stuff.
Plant-based cigarettes, which I guess are already cigarettes, but still healthy plant-based
cigarettes. Yeah, okay. I think
there'll be meat-based cigarettes.
Pretty, I'd probably just eat it by accident, but yeah, I can live with that.
Meat cigarettes is what we're talking about.
I don't know how we ended up here. This took certainly an interesting way. But so the last thing of yours I want to touch on, an amazing series, Masters of the Universe, Revelation. Of course, have it here with the amazing Mike Mignola cover. Man, that must have been huge.
How cool.
But I also love the TV show. So how did the TV show come about? Because I went into it and I guess I was never really a fan of He-Man because it just felt so campy. Like it felt so 80s. Like it was just
you're also young for it. I mean, there's a thing about the reason why this happened is because there haven't been that many variations of Masters of the Universe on television for the masses. And so you kind of had to be in certain age groups to have experienced it when it was a phenomenon. When I was a kid, it was one of the biggest things around, the original like cartoon and the toys when they all came out. And then in the early 2000s, there was a new series that developed a fan base. And there have always been like comic books, but the comics have never been as huge as the TV stuff was.
Yeah.
There was a movie back in 1987, but it wasn't a hit at all. So it didn't really take off. So you kind of had to be, it's sort of like there's a period where a lot of kids grew up and they weren't fans of Doctor Who because there wasn't any Doctor Who on TV when they were kids. And so it makes total sense that it wouldn't be something that, you had gotten into. So Mattel, who owns Masters of the Universe and created it because they created the toys, they were in a partnership with Netflix and decided they wanted to make a new Masters of the Universe series. And then the idea came about that they wanted to do 2 new Masters of the Universe series. So there's a show that's going to be for younger kids that is a CGI show called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe that's premiering next month on Netflix.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the version of Masters of the Universe that is for the old nerds like me who've lived around and lived with He-Man all our lives, and that's Masters Revelation. They were brilliant to hire the incredibly talented and gracious, beyond gracious, Kevin Smith to come in and run that show.
Comic book writer, amazing. His Green Arrow, his Green Arrow.
I mean, his Green Arrow is incredible. He's not, and he's not just an amazing writer and podcaster, but he is also just one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. Everything you see him when you see him on TV or anything, that's who he really is. I mean, he's just a really great guy. So he was very welcoming and brought me and some other writers in, and we came up with a story, and we were really excited to tell it. The thing is, when you work with something that is, there are fans. You talk about, I know you make a lot of jokes about comic book fans, having opinions. He-Man fans have opinions too. And some of that is based around the fact that there haven't been a lot of definitive incarnations of He-Man. There have been some different versions. And so, and people have liked kind of all of them. What you do as a fan is you end up doing these sort of pretzel twist feats of headcanon to kind of make all of these different versions make sense together. And once you do that, you're doing what we do as comic book readers. You're filling in the blanks. You're filling in the panels and the stuff that happens between Long Halloween issues. And you're creating a canon in your head and a variation on the thing that you're the only one who's ever going to really know. And so nobody like me can come in and really put that on screen in a way that's going to be totally satisfying to you. So we knew going in that there would be some fans who would feel like, oh, this isn't the show I want. The way I wanted you to do it. But you just, like we did with Long Halloween, you just go in and try to make the thing that you want to exist in the world, and hope that there are people out there who want to see that too and can get on board and enjoy it. We made it with a lot of love, like we did Long Halloween. We made it with a lot of love for the entire brand, the whole property, and I'm really proud of it. And the whole team, everybody was so proud of that show. There's still 5 more episodes that haven't dropped yet. So we saw the first 5, and the next 5 will be dropping at some point in the future.
Amazing. Funnily enough, now that you mention it, I actually, like, your episode was the first one I watched, and I know you wrote episode 4 because me and my dad, we watched it together, like, on Netflix, because my dad grew up a huge fan of it. He's deaf and he just loves the show. He thinks it's amazing. So we watched it together, and we clicked on it. It's just the way it presented. It said watch now, and I think we clicked on it. We watched episode 4 first. So I went into this thinking, okay, everyone's here, what's going on? And by the time we finished it, we were like, okay, what's going on? And then we had to go back to the start. And we watched it from there.
Good. I'm glad 4 got your attention. I didn't lose you. After 3 episodes, it kind of set some more stuff up for you. But even episode 1 begins in a way that, you're well served if you know a little bit about the legacy and the lore. I think it's still accessible to everyone. But you certainly get a little bit more out of it. Your dad probably got more stuff out of the first episode than you did, because there's a love letter. Kevin wrote that episode, and it's kind of a love letter to a lot of the stylization and the characterization that we saw on the old cartoon back in the 80s.
Orko's my hero, my favorite character, hands down.
Wait, who's your hero?
Orko.
Oh, wow. Well, then I apologize.
Yeah, I just screw you, Tim. What the hell was that about? No, but I really like that line with Oracle and stuff. I thought that was actually. Yeah, spoilers, because you didn't give him that ice cream in that one episode. What did you all think we were talking about?
Yeah, that's what we meant.
That's what we meant. Play it cool, Tim. You're ruining it. You're so bad at poker face. Come on, keep going. But Orko, what an amazing character. But like I said, it was also a team book, and so like you guys, most of you did comic books. Like Mark Bernardin as well, like amazing comic book writer as well. So you guys all did different comics. I just noticed that there. And but so like, was it fun for you to kind of write these more like I guess you could say 80s characters and kind of put new takes and new spins on them, because maybe that wouldn't exactly translate to the big screen now.
Yeah, look, I mean, the whole concept was we'll begin with a feeling like the old classic era of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and then turn the thing on its head. That was Kevin's vision for the show.
Yeah.
And then it would grow up with us the way we all have grown up. It would grow up with us very quickly, and we would jump ahead a little bit and see sort of what the effects of that first episode, the events of the first episode, how that would affect the people of Eternia and Masters of the Universe and He-Man and his friends. And so that was exciting, because I mean, that's the thing. I mean, somebody could just go and make a 80s cartoon if they wanted to. But what I want to see is the thing where I feel like that show has grown up alongside me all these years. And here's a version that I get to watch now and enjoy on a different level and share with my kids the way your dad is sharing Masters of the Universe with you. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate compliment, is if a family can watch it together, something that the parents grew up on and have loved and care about, and then get to watch a new version of that as adults and bring their own kids into that world. That's everything. Because I was talking to Kevin about this when we were doing commentary for the episode. People like Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin and Eric Dia Mishra and I, we all deal in nostalgia. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Like nostalgia for, different things that we've loved throughout our lives, different properties. I mean, I've written on Transformers, and I've written for Batman and Justice League and Masters of the Universe, and this stuff has a lot of nostalgia factor for a lot of people, me included. So the ultimate goal is for the people who really feel the nostalgia, who grew up with it, who love it, to be able to share that with a new generation who develop their own new nostalgia. Hopefully, in 20 years, you're going to be looking back and remembering that He-Man,
Gorilla Greg. I remember when he only started out.
Where will Gorilla Greg be? Maybe he'll be on Eternia. See, wait a minute. You're going to be smoking in 20 years? I thought it was when you were 80.
Cigars this time. Just like both of them, just out of the one thing, Oh, Gorilla Greg.
Meat cigars. Chimp meat cigars. How dare you?
I've moved on, 20 years from now, who knows, just all the time, constantly. But yeah, absolutely. So can anyone pick up Master of the Universe? I believe issue 2 just came out the other day.
Yeah, issue 1 and 2 of 4 of Masters of the Universe Revelation, which is the tie-in prequel comic book to the series on Netflix. Those are available from Dark Horse, anywhere fine comic books are sold. And then Kevin Smith and Rob David, who's our one of our producers on the show, they came up with a story for these 4 issues, asked me if I would script it, and the great Mindy Lee is our artist who's bringing it all to life. And I love that opening scene too with Randor and Marlena.
And Liam Cunningham plays one of the characters, Ireland's own.
Ireland's own Liam Cunningham is Duncan, Man-at-Arms. He is so good. He actually gets the first lines of the show because he's so dang good, that guy. And another Game of Thrones alum, Lena Headey, plays Eva Lynn.
Yeah, just
that was very exciting. I was very happy to work with them. I can't get over how great Liam Cunningham is. My gosh.
You've been very lucky with people you've worked with. I've noticed, with an amazing script such as yourselves. And
I got Mark Hamill again. Mark Hamill as Skeletor after working with him as Joker. So that was
What has he done? What's he done,
that Hamill guy? And
besides only like Joker and Luke Skywalker.
Kevin Conroy plays Merman on Masters Revelation, and he's of course Batman, who was my Batman on Justice League Action. So it was great.
That's my most viewed video on the channel this year, is when I asked Kevin Conroy a question at a panel. That's like 21,000.
Oh, really? He is the real deal, man. That guy is so nice and so talented. He's a great guy. I hope you get to spend more time with him. He's wonderful.
We're best friends. I call him Kev. This may come as news to you. It's just good old Kev. We do golfing every second Thursday. Yes. We are cigars, might I add. Just need them. But yeah, everyone make sure to go pick this up. And you can actually pick this up without watching the show, but I would highly recommend you go watch the show. It's on Netflix now. You can watch the first 5 episodes, and like I said, hopefully there'll be more soon. But yeah, everyone make sure to go pick it up there. But yeah, so I took on sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying thank you. Yes, for reminding everyone that that's available. I hope people read it. I hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely. And so I've taken up so much time. We've been talking for like an hour and 40 minutes almost. Wow. So
No,
before
I
we
got deadlines, man. I told you I'm revealing Red X over here on my other screen. Come on, you gotta let me
yeah,
get
but
back.
then who would talk to you about Gorilla Greg? You need this just as much as I do, Tim.
True, it's
Yeah,
true. Here's an exclusive for you. Gorilla Greg is in this scene.
wow. Which scene?
Gorilla Greg is in this scene in which we are learning about the identity of who Red X is under that mask. I'm not saying who Greg is in the scene. I'm not saying he's under the mask or not. I'm just saying he's here.
Amazing. That's an exclusive here. I'm going to pimp this out. I'm going to sell this to Bleeding Cool. Writer extraordinaire Tim Sheridan says Red X potential could be this character, you know? Wait till you
know
see
what? Seriously, you guys have to calm down with the extraordinaire thing. Somebody else called me that. Who was it?
Actually, I just came up with that.
No, the Batman book club guys. You said, I said, don't say writer extraordinaire, because the minute you say that, now the expectations are high. So what I want you to say is Tim Sheridan, trash writer who never writes a good thing. And then people will say, wow, this is really good for a trash writer.
I'll say Tim Sheridan, best writer in the world, 100-time Eisner Award winning. Comments on this. So just come up with that.
Michelin star winning.
Oscar winning
writer. Yeah. Oscar winning comic book writer.
It's as easy as that. Absolutely. But my last couple of questions, have you noticed improvement as a writer? Like, do you look back to some of your early work and say, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done this, or, oh, this would have been a fun concept? Or do you look back to some of your early work and think that?
Daniel, what are your aspirations? Let me ask you this. Do you write at all? Do you ever want to write? Do you draw? Like, what do you have any aspirations in this work?
Comic book writing. And if that doesn't pan out, drug dealing, but mainly comic book writing.
Okay, well, let's just go with comic book writing.
Unless you can give me advice on the other one. Then
no, don't do that. Comic book writing. And let's expand out and say writing in general. Being a professional writer is kind of the best way I can describe it. It is a constant tug of war between getting better at your job and getting worse at your job. You will have days when you do the best thing you've ever done, and maybe it is the best thing you've ever written. And then the next day you will write the worst thing you've ever written. and there is mystery to it. There's no real way to predict how it's going to go. You just have to keep at it. It's one of those things that it's just a discipline, you know? You just keep going, keep writing. If you want to write, you just keep doing it. Eventually, some of it won't be garbage.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And so another question I'd like to ask you is, do you have a dream comic book character that you'd like to work on, or that one character you'd like to maybe do a comic book series with?
Red Velvet.
Red Velvet again? You know, any series?
No, I do. I'm trying to think of a different one, because I can't tell you the one that I really want to do, because it's an active pitch right now. Wow. So if I get to do it, it would be really amazing, but I can't talk about it right now.
We'll have to have you back on.
By the way, I probably won't get to do it, but for some reason, things change. I'll get to do it.
I thought the editors just let everyone do whatever they want, you know?
No.
No, they won't let me do this.
Yeah, that's how it is. I'm like, come on, this is really good. They're like, no.
No.
I can't believe the number of things they said no to in my run of Titans Academy, which it's like, but I created these guys and this is my story. Like, you can't do that.
Oh, man.
The whole Red X reveal is not the way I was going to do it. It's because DC told me I had to do it a different way. So I had to come up with something different.
So will we at some point see the identity of Red X?
Yeah, it's right here on the screen next to me.
Can you just turn your camera a little? There's a glare coming in, so you just need to turn it towards the window.
Reflected on my glasses at all. Let me just do that. No, that's my ring light next to it. The thing. It's characters that I want to write for. If I was writing Marvel, I would want to write Nova. If I was writing, let's see, I have creator stuff that I'm kind of starting to think about now.
Brilliant.
That might be happening. there's a guy who you may have heard of, and I'm not going to reveal his name right now. But
why would you lead with that? Why would you?
There's a well-known comic book creator, very well-known comic book creator, very well-known comic book creator, who I've gotten a chance to do a little work with. And this person has said to me, is really kind of encouraging me to work on some creator stuff and get my own stories out there. And it's sort of like, I look to this person and think, you look to people and you think, I want what they've got. I want to do things the way they would do things. And that's the kind of career I want to have. And if that person tells you, hey, you should be doing this, you got to give it some real serious consideration. So in fact, last night I mapped out a whole story that I'm working on. So, there's things like that I want to do.
Perfect. I think you'd be amazing.
What a terrible answer. This is the worst answer I could have ever given to hey, is there a comic book character you want to write? Like, I'm a horrible guest. I'm the worst guest you've ever had.
Not at all. This is no. This has been an amazing interview. You see, I've went off on some pretty wild tangents. Like I said in this interview, I bet you didn't think we'd talk about Werner Herzog, the monkey cigarettes, or just half of the things we touched on.
Do you know what we haven't talked about? I have that same microphone that you have in my Amazon cart right now. And I've been like, ooh, do I want to buy this microphone or not? I don't know anyone who uses it and if they would recommend it. You're the first person I know who uses it. Do you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, it works great for me sometimes. I got it from my godfather for Christmas. And I use it all the time. I think it's really good for my interviews. I think you do have to test it out a little bit, but I think if you can hear me okay, it does. I think it's better than the computer audio. But yeah, man, definitely.
I can hear you okay. It's just that it's hard to understand you. You have this really thick, like it's making this thick accent or something, some kind of dialect. It almost sounds, I guess, Irish or something.
If you think I have a thick Irish accent, oh, let me tell you something. You should come here. My friends call me American because of how I sound. If you even come here to Ireland, you could go up to talk to one of the nearest farmers. I just nod. I don't understand anything, and I'm Irish.
I'm working on a thing with some folks in Ireland right now, and we have a call. We have a couple times a week we meet, and the other day in our meeting, they sent me a YouTube video of an Irish comedian, stand-up comedian, who was doing a whole bit that was really funny. But it was great. Oh no, wait, that's not the one I wanted to tell you about. They sent me a video clip of a guy who was being interviewed in a pub.
Yeah, he's like,
have you seen this?
Man the other day, and he's just like making noises.
You can't understand what this man is saying if you're an American. Could you understand it, Daniel?
You understand, like, you kind of learn the slang. Like, they'd refer to something because you kind of put it together. I'm very good at kind of like figuring things out kind of quickly and putting it together. But still, I understood little phrases, but I wouldn't understand them there. And that's
I lost him very quickly, and I just thought I have no idea what's happening. I don't know what's happening, but it was delightful. And as I don't know. I mean, as a man named Timothy Patrick Sheridan, you may know my heritage is Irish, and so it's very exciting getting to be in touch with my ancestry a little bit and not being able to understand a word of it.
See, don't feel too bad. Literally, no one understands any of it, so that you don't have to feel too broken up. But yeah, absolutely. So hopefully someday you can make it out to Ireland. I can just get you to. I'll very kindly let you sign my huge stack of comics here because I'm very generous like that.
I noticed. Well, I'll happily do that. I noticed that you have the windscreen on the other side of the microphone. Why would you have that on the other side of the microphone?
Is it not meant to be on the other side?
Oh no, because that's supposed to go in front of the microphone, right? So that if you it's supposed to go on the other side.
You actually might be correct. I thought it was like the filter sound or something. Oh, have I been using it wrong this whole time?
It's to keep, like, if you like peas pop, to keep things like that from being too, and if you breathe heavily, for keeping it from like being. Let's see if I can hear you.
Does that sound any better?
Oh my gosh, you sound like you're 20 miles away now. Don't listen to anything I say. Oh, you know why? Because you probably have it on unidirectional mode. It's only getting the sound from the other side.
Yeah, probably. I'm literally, I don't understand any of this.
I'm so excited to talk about this microphone. I'm the worst guest you've ever had.
I use it to look professional. Like, this is the first time anyone's brought my microphone. I'm so glad someone finally noticed it. Not to brag, but
Well, I don't know. Maybe you know something I don't. Maybe that's the way you should use it. I don't know. I want the details on this microphone.
Go with that, Tim. Go with I know something you don't. Yeah, I like that option. Yeah, I'm secretly a genius. This works out in my favor. But yeah,
absolutely. Well, until the next time we do this, hopefully I will have a green light for Chimp Squad that we will be working on together.
Of course.
And hopefully there'll be some more Gorilla Greg stuff out there. You'll get to give me your opinion on issues 6 and 7 of Titans Academy, featuring Gorilla Greg. And I don't know, maybe Detective Chimp. No, he's not in there. I can't.
Why would you lead with that?
I'm not allowed to use him. He's there in spirit.
It wasn't the real Detective Chimp the friends we made on the way. Isn't that just it? I use that line in my interview so much. But yeah, absolutely. And so good luck with that.
He's the best detective in DC?
Better than Batman by a mile,
They say Batman's the world's greatest detective. People get mad at me when they watch Long Halloween because I'm like, well, he's young, he's just starting out. He's not the world's greatest detective yet. In Batman the Long Halloween continuity, in my movies, Detective Chimp is the world's greatest detective.
That's canon. Thank you, Tim, so much. That's actually now canon. You said it, so that's technically true. I like to think that Detective Chimp is just somewhere in that world doing whatever he can.
No, he's there. If you watch the movies again real closely, you'll see him. He's there.
I saw a blur of brown and gray. Is that Detective Chimp? Now, wait till, like I said, Bleeding Cool is going to report on this tomorrow. Writer hints at Detective Chimp existing in Marvel, in DC Long Halloween universe, question mark?
Stop looking at Bleeding Cool's headlines. What are you doing?
No, because we all know comic book news headlines. They never lie. It's all just pure fact. But speaking of which, I'm sure you're used to that because every second week there's a new Red X identity revealed by comic book readers or Screen Rant or Nerdist or something.
So true. So true. I had one where I was just like, hey, come on, this is clickbait. Stop doing this.
Has anyone gotten it yet?
Has anyone figured out who it is?
Yeah.
Yes, but publicly, you mean like online?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't follow all of it.
I can't wait to see that reveal. So do you have like
that's a total lie? I read all of those tweets. I follow all of it.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're just eating popcorn like, oh, so close, almost there.
Yeah. And like, oh, they got it.
Absolutely. But yeah.
Well, you must have an idea. You must have an opinion.
I literally made a video. Like it's like 15 minutes long of me sharing all my theories. I haven't uploaded it yet.
You have a video? You have a theory video on Red X's identity? I didn't know this.
I didn't upload it because I get my friend to edit it soon. But I can send it to you unlisted if you like. But I literally just made it because I was like, I want to make a video on Red X. And it was before I even contacted you. So that shows.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited to see it. I mean, I can watch it when everybody else does, or I can watch it before. I won't give you notes though until after.
You can say, oh, well, it's not him. It's actually. And then that's how I get you.
Here, let's just turn my camera to the screen so you can.
Come on, do it. Come on. So close there. So close. We're so close yet so far. We almost got it, guys.
So far.
Typical. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk to you a little bit off air. But before we finish up, are you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? Do you have a website or anything like that?
I'm desperate for more Twitter followers. Please. Please. Because I want to hear your opinion, especially comic book fans with really controversial opinions. That's who I want to hear from all the time. Have
you not come across any of them yet? That's wow. I'm so sure that all the fans have just been polite and respectful because that's the comic. There are a lot of respectful fans. I have a lot of great relationships with a lot of fans. On Twitter, I'm at I am Tim Sheridan. But on Instagram, I love Tim Sheridan, which is what it should have been originally, but that was one too many characters for Twitter. Could you not have just spelt it like the LUV way?
But somebody else had that, so I couldn't use it.
Is it a common name?
I actually have no idea.
I have such.
But then I think it would have been confusing because I would have been ILOVE on one thing and LUV on another thing, and I don't know.
Maybe he just significantly cared less and just stopped spelling things properly. Like,
everybody follow me so I can get that blue check mark that everybody seems to want for some reason. I don't really care about it, but like apparently it's currency. So I want currency. So follow me already.
you do love that sweet money. I follow you, so that should be enough. That's infinitely giving you at least 1,000 followers. So
thank you. Very good.
Easily.
Well done.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll talk to you a little bit, Tim, off air. But before we finish up, everyone, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at SamboGizmo1. Please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. There'll be a link for that down in the description. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Go pick up Teen Titans issue 5, Teen Titans Academy issue 5. Pick up Masters of the Universe Revelation issue 2. And is there anything else you'd like to promote?
Pick up Batman: The Long Halloween parts 1 and 2, available everywhere, digital and disc.
Yeah, and like I said, if you have an Xbox, or I'm not sure if it's the same for PS4, PlayStation, you can pick it up at the Microsoft Store, which I'd highly recommend. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Stay safe and long live Gorilla Greg.